do not trust the president's actually looking at his best interest.
I guess you're saying that
I'm controlling the time here.
Obeying the law.
I'm controlling. You're not obeying the law. You're plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. Plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. Plundering taxpayer dollars.
Before we even roll the full hearing, you need to understand what you just saw. Because that 10-second explosion at the end isn't some one-off outburst. It's the moment all the quiet tension finally detonates. Senator Ruben Gallego isn't just frustrated. He's staring at a Treasury Secretary who keeps insisting he has no role in decisions that could put billions of taxpayer dollars straight into Donald Trump's pocket. And the more Gallego presses, the more Scott Bessent shrinks back into this rehearsed legal shelter. That's a DOJ matter. I follow the law. I'm just the paymaster. Watch closely, because this entire exchange builds toward that final eruption. It's like watching someone corner a witness who realizes the escape routes are disappearing one by one. We're going to break down exactly how Gallego gains momentum, why Bessent never finds his footing, and how every deflection makes the heat spike higher. But first, let's rewind to where this confrontation begins. The first cracks appear early, and from that moment on, Bessent is trying to hold the frame together while Gallego steadily pries it apart. This first clip sets everything in motion.
Sir, Senator Gallego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Bessent, thank you again for being here today. We kind of touched on this earlier. In addition to being Treasury Secretary, you are serving as Acting Director of the IRS. So following up on Senator Kim's questioning, so you are fully aware that the President is suing your agency for $10 billion.
Yeah.
We would agree. Would you agree that $10 billion is a good sum of money?
Yes, sir.
Where would that be cut from? Let's say for some reason he actually wins that lawsuit. Where would that $10 billion come from?
Again, it would come from...
process-wise. I'm not asking like your opinion whether it's right or wrong.
It would come from Treasury.
It comes from Treasury, which comes from the general fund?
The Treasury general account.
So taxpayers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Part of the 440,000 taxpayers whose returns were leaked.
If the president, they're not suing, but if the president prevails in this lawsuit, he's going to be able to pocket that money. My question is the president, has anyone in the president's office talked to you about this lawsuit in any regard?
They have not, and the president said he will donate the proceeds to charity. You may have missed that.
So no one at all has discussed this to you whatsoever?
No, sir, and the president said he will.
Have you received, I didn't ask any more questions. Have you received any advice from Treasury's legal division about how to handle this potential conflict?
This is a Justice Department matter. They represent Treasury in it.
Have someone from the Department of Justice actually come and talk to you saying that this is their purview and you need to stay out of it? Or who has discussed to you what is your role in this?
Our general counsel, who's sitting behind me, has told me that it is a Justice Department matter. The Justice Department defends Treasury in matters like this.
Okay, so you have...
All right, let's break down what we just saw, because this is where the entire dynamic for the rest of the hearing gets locked into place. From the very first question, Gallego moves straight to the pressure point. The President of the United States is suing the Treasury, the very department Bessent oversees, for $10 billion. That's not small change. That's not symbolic. And it's not some bureaucratic footnote. Gallego frames it for exactly what it is, a massive financial claim that would ultimately come out of taxpayer funds. And you can see immediately how Bessent reacts, not with clarity, not with confidence, but with this soft-pedaled hesitation. He answers, but every answer feels like it's been pre-sanded down by lawyers. When Gallego asks whether $10 billion is a good sum of money, Bessent stiffly acknowledges yes, but in a way that suggests he's terrified of agreeing too emphatically because of what the question implies. Then comes the part that sets the tone for everything. Gallego asks where the money would come from if Trump wins, and Bessent finally gives a direct answer. Treasury, the general account, taxpayers, but the moment he does, the vulnerability is exposed. He's now on record confirming that Trump's legal win would literally pull billions straight from the public. Gallego uses that admission instantly. He connects it to the leaked taxpayer returns, the 440,000 affected taxpayers, highlighting that if Trump prevails, he essentially walks away with money derived from the very system he claims to have been wronged by. That framing hits like a hammer. You get a real sense that Gallego is building a case, not just asking questions. And then we hit the next layer, the contact question. Has anyone in the president's office talked to Bessent about this lawsuit? Bessent says no. Has anyone advised him? Again, he pivots away, insisting this is a DOJ matter. He keeps repeating that theme because he thinks it protects him. But politically? Narratively? It makes him look like someone distancing himself from the very job he holds. Gallego isn't letting that slide. Every time Bessent says DOJ matter, Gallego pushes again. Who talked to you? What did they tell you? Do you have any role? Can you make any decision at all? And Bessent keeps narrowing his world until he's painted himself as a Treasury Secretary who effectively has no agency regarding the largest personal financial claim ever brought by a sitting president against his own government. This is where the momentum shifts. Gallego is in full control, he's getting cleaner answers, firmer admissions, and more visible discomfort. And Bessent is now reacting, not leading. But the next section is where the real pressure hits. Gallego stops probing the legal technicalities and starts probing the power imbalance, the conflict of interest, the chain of command, the basic question of whether a cabinet official can independently act when the president personally stands to gain billions from his department. This is where you can literally see the temperature rise.
Treasury in matters like this.
Okay, so it has been discussed with you. Do you have any final say at all in the process of this? Or is the DOJ just going to instruct you to cut a check and or settle, and you have no independence to actually make a decision whether or not the president deserves $10 billion?
Again, that is a DOJ matter.
And so the DOJ will entirely make that decision if and whether or not the president should receive $10 billion. You have no say at all.
Correct.
So you would just have to write the check if you were told to write the check.
Correct.
And you would write the check willingly if you were told by a DOJ to the president.
I will follow the law, Senator.
Okay. I mean, I think for many of us, this is very simple, and I think if this had been happening in any other countries, it would look an absolute, like a total shakedown of the American taxpayer. Are you also aware that President Trump has filed claims seeking $230 million from the Justice Department for investigations conducted during his previous candidacy?
I'm unaware of the cumulative number.
Okay. So if the president wins or settles these claims, that money will come also from the Treasury Judgment Fund, which you do control. Have you recused yourself from any decisions about paying the president on these claims?
Again, I'll follow the law, and I'm not involved with any of this. It stems from justice.
So you, even though the Treasury Judgment Fund is called the Treasury Judgment Fund, you have no control over the Treasury Judgment Fund?
We act as paymaster.
So you will sign it then?
Sorry?
You will sign the check then? If you're a paymaster, you'd be the person's signature is to the Treasury Judgment Fund?
I would assume it would be a wire transfer.
Yes, I'm assuming we're not that old school.
Yep.
But that being said, so you have no say in this whatsoever. You will only basically follow what the DOJ says, but you're the person that actually is the final person that pushes send, essentially, on the wire transfer.
Yes.
And even if you feel or that it is unjust, the fact that this president is basically plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars, you will still hit that send button.
Even if I believe that 6103, the IRS tax code, was violated and 440,000 taxpayers were leaked
So
by Mr.
back
Littlejohn.
back to this other thing. So now, you do believe, though? I mean, do you understand why some of us see a problem with that? And let me ask just a very simple question: do you work for the president of the United States?
I work for the American people.
So can the president fire you?
Or he can.
He can fire you, correct?
Yes.
So isn't it a conflict of interest that you're going to be making these decisions and the president has full power over you?
I think you're confused, Senator. I am not part of the decision.
Well, you're certainly a person that send on the wire transfer, and I think that's why there's a lot of people that are actually do not trust and do not trust the president's actually looking at his best interest.
I guess you're saying that
I'm controlling the time here.
Obeying the law.
I'm controlling. You're not obeying the law. You're plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. Plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars.
That second half is where everything accelerates. You can almost feel the patience evaporating from the room. Gallego shifts from procedural to existential. If Bessent has no independence, no authority, and no ability to resist DOJ directives, then who is protecting the public? Who stops a president, especially one with Trump's history of using litigation as a political and personal weapon, from siphoning taxpayer funds through the government he leads? When Gallego asks about the Treasury Judgment Fund, Bessent again minimizes his role. We act as paymaster. That phrase alone is telling. A cabinet secretary describing himself as a glorified bookkeeper while billions hang in the balance? That's not reassurance. That's waving a red flag. Gallego senses the weakness immediately. He doesn't let Bessent hide behind process or jargon. He strips it down to the blunt mechanics. If the DOJ tells you to send the money, you will send it. Correct? Yes. You would do it even if you personally believe it's unjust? I will follow the law. These aren't wins for Bessent. These are admissions, and each one digs him deeper into a position where he's accountable for the outcome, but not responsible for the decision. That's the worst possible place to be in a hearing like this. Then comes the big pivot. Gallego asks whether the president can fire him. Bessent says yes. Immediately, Gallego pairs that with the payout question. If a president stands to personally receive government money, and he can fire the man processing the payment, that's a conflict of interest, right? This is where Bessent goes from defensive to rattled. He tries to sidestep it by repeating that Gallego is confused. But that line falls flat. Because by now, Gallego has all the leverage. He's walked Bessent through every admission needed to frame the conflict clearly. You answer to the president. You have no independent decision-making power. You would process the payment. You cannot stop it, and that's the moment the frustration boils over. Gallego isn't just criticizing policy anymore. He's calling out what he sees as an abuse of public trust. That's why his tone spikes, why the tempo shifts, and why you hear the word plundering echo multiple times. He's accusing the president of weaponizing the machinery of government for personal enrichment and accusing Bessent of enabling it by hiding behind bureaucratic detachment. What makes this explosive isn't just the content, it's the power dynamic on display. Gallego is on offense, pressing harder and harder. Bessent is shrinking, offering less detail, less clarity, and more rigid talking points. Every time he says Justice Department matter, it sounds a little more like a shield he's afraid to put down. It's also worth noting how the ending hits. Gallego loses patience, raises his voice, and hammers the phrase plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. He's signaling that in his view, this isn't a neutral dispute or an internal agency process. It's a direct threat to public funds, structured in a way that leaves the very official meant to protect those funds powerless to intervene. Let's unpack why that matters and why this exchange resonated so sharply. First, the sheer scale. $10 billion is not symbolic. Even one settlement, one judgment, one directive could shift billions. And Bessent repeatedly confirms that if DOJ tells him to send it, he will. That's the line that keeps echoing in this hearing. Not because he says it dramatically, but because it makes him look like a bystander to his own job. Second, the accountability vacuum. Gallego is highlighting a system where the president can sue his own government, be represented against by his own DOJ, and then be paid by his own Treasury. And no one in that process, not Bessent, not DOJ, not any firewall, seems to have independence from the president who stands to benefit. Third, the trust issue. Gallego calls it a shakedown. Whether viewers agree or not, the framing is simple. If a president can direct subordinates who control the money, the public needs to know whether those subordinates can act independently. Bessent's answers suggest they cannot. Fourth, the tone. Bessent never gets assertive, never clarifies aggressively, never pushes back with confidence. He stays in this muted, procedural posture that makes him look smaller as the questioning grows sharper. When someone being grilled appears passive or evasive, it becomes easier for the questioner to define them, and Gallego defines him as complicit, powerless, or both. And finally, the breaking point. That last 10 seconds isn't just anger. It's the culmination of a long line of contradictions created by Bessent's own answers. He insists he's not involved, yet he confirms he sends the wire. He insists there's no conflict, yet he admits the president can fire him. He insists he's following the law, yet the law in this context still funnels money into the president's hands. No wonder the exchange explodes. It's a pressure cooker built slowly over 4 minutes. Now let's bring it home. If you want more breakdowns like this where powerful people get pressed on the record, hit subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Who do you think came out stronger in this hearing? And what was the one moment that changed the whole exchange?